All right, guys, eyes on the screen. A couple of things that you need to know about doing colored pencil is colored pencils like to be layered. They like to be layered. And they also like to be very, very sharp. So hopefully you have your own handheld pencil sharpener. That was one thing that I asked for you to have. If you do not have one, don't freak out. I can probably get you one that you can borrow during the assignment. But we want to constantly keep them sharpened. Just like with regular shading, your pencil, believe it or not, if you guys look at your paper underneath the microscope, it looks like mountains. It has like peaks and valleys because it's fibers that are put together to create your paper. Okay. If you don't keep your pencil sharp, that little point of your pencil is not going to get down into the valleys. It's just going to hit the top of the peaks and it's going to look really fuzzy. Okay. And we don't want that. So what I'm going to have you guys do, I know I don't have my subject drawn out because I'm just going to teach you how to layer, and then you guys can actually put your darks and lights where they go on your subject. So for instance, let's say that I'm going to be doing a Sprite can. Okay. Obviously my can is green. And because it's aluminum, I also have these bright white highlights. So a lot of times what I like to do is before I even start shading is I'll kind of put in and then kind of draw where those bright white highlights go. So that way I can stay around them, okay? Depending on your can, even though you have bright white highlights, they might not be pure white. They might be like a really light shade of the color. Does that make sense? But I would at least maybe draw some of them in because that's what's going to create the metal look, is knowing exactly where these highlights go. Okay. And then what you can do is start thinking about your colors. Obviously it's green. However, I have dark greens and I have light greens. It'll come back on in a minute. It just likes to fall asleep sometimes. Okay. So because my can is green, I've got at least 2 colors of green. Now I'm going to test them out. I've got yellow green and I've got apple green. And I'm going to test them out because if they're really similar to each other, it's really not going to do much. So if I test this color of green and this color of green, can you guys see the difference in the two? Yeah. So that's a pretty good choice for green. I have a kind of like a regular green and I have a really light one. If I were to choose this Barrick green, this Barrick green and my yellow green are way too close. They almost look exactly the same, don't they? So that's not going to help me at all. So whatever color, be it blue, be it red, whatever color, then you just need to make sure that you are picking 2 different ones. So I've got my basically my light green and my dark green. And so how do I do this? Well, first of all, I want to make sure my pencil's really sharp, and that one wasn't quite sharp enough. So I'm going to make it really sharp. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is the very first step in doing colored pencil, I'm just going to draw a little square just so you guys can get the idea. I am going to go with really little short strokes, and I'm actually going to color in with my lightest color most of my area. I'm going to pretend there's a highlight right here, which is going to be paper white right here in the middle. So I'm putting my lightest color down first. And then I'm going to layer. Once I get all my lightest color down, I know it's probably hard for you guys to see. Let me see if I can make it a little darker. I'm going to take my darkest green and I'm going to only color where the dark color is. And then as I get lighter, I want to lift. Lift, lift, lift. So it almost melts into my lightest green. Now, since I'm doing aluminum, I might have like a darker green in spots that don't blend. It might look kind of streaky in areas depending on how the light changes. It might turn. How do I know where those values are changing? How do I know?
Because on some spots the light will be shining on the spots.
But how do you know where to put them?
Because it's aluminum and light reflects off of it.
Reflects off of what?
The can.
Your can, the subject that you're looking at. So you're drawing, again, you're drawing what you see, okay? Looking at the placement of the darks and lights. I'm grabbing a dark blue. Blue and green like each other, don't they? Okay. So I'm grabbing a dark blue. Why do they like each other? Because they're both cool colors. They're both kind of on the same side of the color wheel. And I want this green to be a little darker. I'm not happy with it. So I'm going to make this green a little darker. Well, I don't have the green down. So if the green's already down and I put a little bit of blue over it, it doesn't look blue. What happens? It actually does look like a darker green, doesn't it? Maybe a little bit of a teal color, but the point is that it's making it a little darker with the colors that you have. For red, same thing. Red and purple actually like each other. So if you get your red in there and you want to make your red darker, you could add maybe purple. After you put the red on, maybe you could add a little purple to the top of it to make it darker. Okay? So I want you guys to practice on your sketch. So your sketch already has your subject drawn on it. So you're going to practice your sketch on your sketch. Not the whole thing. Just find a spot that's got a little bit of everything. It's got a highlight on it. Maybe it's got some text on it. You are not going to be drawing your text. I want you to work around it. So you're going to draw the main can and work around the details because a lot of those cans have your letters being white. Okay. If your can is a lighter color and your lettering is darker, I still want you to work around it. I want to do the letters at the end. So and basically that is your background. So we always work on the background first. Okay. Now there's one other thing I want to talk to you about. Some of you might have like a white or a light can. And if that's the case, Mrs. Braun, how do you shade white? You can shade with some of the pastel colors. And so I've got a ton of options here. It depends on the options that you have. You can shade white with gray, and that's only one pencil, and that's okay. You might not if you use gray to shade white, you might not be able to layer as much, but that's okay. So if you shade with gray, you're actually going to change your pressure to create darks and lights. So you can press and lift, and that will kind of create your shading. Something else that I like to do, this is just a regular gray. To me, it looks kind of like a brown gray. Something else I would like to do is if I did gray, what if I went back in with like a lighter purple? And what if I shaded on the gray with some purples or blues? Purple and blue are cool colors, and cool colors recede, which means they fall back, which means cool colors are really nice to use in shadows. Okay. And so if I have a gray area and if I use a gray pencil, maybe I want to go back and use like a light purple or a light blue and maybe kind of dust over some of the shading with the gray. That would be really cool. I feel like if you guys start with the light pastels only, I think it's going to look too, it's not going to look as realistic as like a real like white or gray can. So I think what I would do is start out with any of your grays lightly and then go back with some of your darks and add some of the colors. Okay.
What if you don't have a colored pencil that matches?
If you do not have a colored pencil that matches your can, that is a great question. I would just go with one that's close. Okay.
Okay, but like, what do we do when we try to like look darker?
It's the same scenario. So if you have to go a little darker, whatever color you have, you might have two colors in your case that you can use to make a regular color and go darker. Or you can take that one color and you can add blue or purple into the shadows. Okay? That's why you're practicing, right? That's why you're not on your final yet. That's why I'm going to let you guys pick a little swatch and try to shade a little bit of it on your sketch.